Have you ever wondered why some people just skip steps in the world of investments? As if out of nowhere, opportunities suddenly appear that never seem to come your way, like private deals, off-market investments, or those conversations that happen in closed groups and only seem to exist for a small minority. Perhaps you've already felt that strange sensation that there's a hidden level, almost like a secret phase, where the right doors only open for those who have already reached a certain level of wealth. What if I told you that this impression isn't an exaggeration? That there really is a silent filter, an invisible divider called 250K barrier? What determines who is seen as an average investor and who starts to be treated as someone who deserves real opportunities? Stick with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. The truth is that the financial market doesn't work as most people imagine. It's not a transparent showcase where everything is within reach of the general public. On the contrary, it's made of layers. The surface, where everyone is, only shows common products, repeated offers, and those options that banks push on those who are just starting out. But there's another layer, deeper, quieter, where private deals emerge, discreet invitations, investments with high minimum tickets, and even mentors who only appear when they perceive consistency. And it's precisely at this point that the so-called 250K barrier comes in, not because 250,000 is a magic number, but because it represents something that few manage to build: discipline, consistency, strategy, and a long-term investor behavior pattern. Have you ever experienced this? That feeling that you're doing everything right? Studying, investing, staying focused, but still never receiving that kind of game-changing opportunity? Perhaps it's because, for the market, you haven't yet crossed the line that separates intention from real commitment. The 250K barrier has nothing to do with astronomical gains. It's about proof. Proof that you know how to plant, wait, build wealth with patience, and resist the immediacy that brings so many people down. And when you reach that level, something curious happens. Doors start to open. Suddenly, someone calls you for a private conversation. An investor friend asks if you want to analyze a business that won't be advertised anywhere. A mentor finally sees you not as a beginner, but as someone worth investing time in. The most curious thing? None of this is said openly. It's as if the entire market operates under an unwritten rule, where only those who reach that first major milestone begin to see opportunities that have always been there, just invisible to those who weren't ready yet. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. Because understanding this gateway, this hidden mechanism, is the first step to entering the world where investors who truly accumulate wealth play. And from here, everything starts to make much more sense. And as all of this begins to make sense, perhaps you'll realize you're not alone in this process. Many people feel that same silent frustration of investing month after month and still feeling like they're missing out on the opportunities that truly matter. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has resonated with you so far. Perhaps the feeling that there's an invisible door. Perhaps the surprise of discovering that the 250K barrier isn't about luck, but about behavior. Or even some personal experience that made you realize that the market treats investors very differently depending on their level. I read everything, and your perspective can help others who are going through the same thing. And since we're on this journey together, to understand what really happens behind the scenes in the financial world, take advantage and like this video. It may seem simple, but when you click like, YouTube understands that this content has value, that it deserves to reach more people who are also trying to get out of this noisy surface and access better opportunities. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of message. People who, like you, want to build wealth intelligently and with a long-term vision. And if you feel this is the kind of conversation you want to continue having, subscribe to the channel. That's how you ensure you won't miss any of the upcoming parts of this series, especially when we start to break down how, in practice, these private invitations arise, why certain mentors only appear after 250K subscribers, and how you can consciously accelerate this process. This community only exists because you are here, participating, building together. Now that we understand the importance of this invisible door and what it begins to reveal, we can delve even deeper into what changes when you finally cross that line, because that's when the game really starts to change. When we truly begin to understand what's behind that $250,000 barrier, we realize it's much less about the number itself and much more about what it reveals behind the scenes. Because $250,000 isn't just an accumulated amount. It's a silent message that the market reads instantly. It's as if it's saying, here's someone who didn't give up halfway, who made consistent decisions, who endured setbacks, who kept their mindset aligned even on difficult days. This value symbolizes transformation. It indicates maturity, discipline, and emotional resilience. And it's precisely this combination that acts as a natural filter to separate the investor who is just experimenting from the one who is truly building something solid along the way. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a hidden truth that few people openly discuss. Serious mentors, those who truly have something valuable to teach, don't want to waste energy on those who are merely curious or expecting a miracle tip. They observe behavior, not speeches. They observe consistency in contributions, not momentary excitement. They observe the ability to maintain strategy, not the impulse to follow the day's trend. And when they see someone who has already crossed the $250K mark, they immediately identify a pattern. This investor knows the value of time, understands their own limitations, and realizes that wealth is not an event, but a process. Those who reach this point have already faced fears, dealt with the impact of their own choices, and learned from mistakes that don't appear on social media. And this creates a type of stability that is very rare at the initial levels. That's where the so-called investor filter comes into play. It's not a closed club driven by ego, but by efficiency. Experienced mentors and investors know that it's only worth sharing opportunities, behind-the-scenes insights, and strategic revelations with people who won't waste them. Those who lack consistency in their investments tend to disappear at the first challenge. Those who lack emotional resilience abandon the plan at the slightest sign of a setback. Those who lack a long-term vision turn every fluctuation into a storm. But those who have reached 250K carry in their behavior proof that they can navigate all of that without losing focus. And that proof completely changes how others perceive you. After this milestone, invitations begin to appear almost imperceptibly. A mentor mentions something they've never mentioned before. An investor calls you to analyze a business that's off the radar. Someone starts a private conversation about an opportunity that would never be widely publicized. Not because you've gotten rich now, but because you finally joined the group of people who are taken seriously. People who understand the game, and therefore can access layers that were invisible until then. And that changes everything, because you start to see connections, doors, and decisions that simply weren't offered before. It's as if a new page opens before you, revealing that the path to wealth building was always much longer than it seemed at first. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. When you finally begin to see what lies on the other side of that silent barrier, you realize that the investment game completely changes. It's almost like walking through a door that's always been there, but only becomes visible after you build the right level of consistency, maturity, and mindset. And on the other side, there aren't just bigger numbers. There are opportunities that seem to emerge from another reality, hidden from most, operating behind the scenes of the market. The curious thing is that none of this appears in advertisements, shop windows, or open platforms. These opportunities live in private conversations, discreet messages, small circles where every word matters, and every decision is made based on information that doesn't reach the general public. These are private deals with few openings, where the value lies not only in the financial return, but in the strategic impact of entering before the masses. These are land plots, shares, companies, and projects that will never end up on OLX, Zap, or any well-known portal because they change hands before they are even listed. And in the midst of all this, there are club deals, closed groups that come together to buy stakes that a single investor could never access. These doors only open when someone sees in you a solid enough track record to trust that you understand risk, timing, and responsibility. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this contrast is stark. While the novice investor is struggling to find a 100% CDI-linked CDB, Certificate of Deposit, believing this to be a great strategic move, those who have already surpassed the $250,000 mark are analyzing deals that can multiply their assets, not just protect them. And This isn't arrogance, it's a consequence. A consequence of a journey where the person learned that exponential returns don't appear en masse, but rather in restricted, silent opportunities that reach those who have already demonstrated consistent behavior. Products with high minimum investment amounts also fall into this logic. Funds that require $50,000 to start, private REITs, early-stage companies, exclusive offers that are only sent to a select few. Not because they are elitist, but because these instruments require an investor who knows exactly what they are getting into. The greater the potential, the greater the need for discipline, responsibility, and understanding of the impact of one's own decisions. What's most interesting is realizing how this creates two completely different worlds. One thrives on noise, news, insecurity, and the eternal search for basic profitability. The other thrives on silence, strategy, predictability, and access. And when you cross that boundary, everything starts to connect in a way that seemed impossible before. You understand the hidden truth. It's not that these opportunities didn't exist before, it's that you weren't yet at the level where they became visible. It's a revelation that completely changes how you see your trajectory and transforms wealth building into a much more conscious, profound, and strategic journey. Comment below. That makes sense to me. When you begin to understand how this access truly happens, you realize that none of it arises with fanfare, announcements, or explicit invitations. In fact, everything moves silently, almost like a secret choreography, where each gesture carries meaning. The curious thing is that, before reaching 250K followers, this world seems distant, almost fictional. But when you cross that line, something changes in how others see you, and you begin to notice subtle movements, small openings that previously went unnoticed. An investor friend mentions something, just to comment. An old contact calls you to talk about a project that hasn't been disclosed. Someone adds you to a closed group where more advanced discussions take place, but only among people who have already proven their consistency. None of this is done theatrically. It's all discreet, almost intimate, like sharing something valuable only with those who understand the weight of the responsibility. And that's exactly where the transformation starts to make sense. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's an interesting phenomenon that few people realize: automatic credibility. When your net worth reaches this level, you begin to carry a symbol that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. It's as if the market itself recognizes you as part of a disciplined minority, a silent community that operates far from the hustle and bustle of the masses. And this minority circulates in environments where opportunities are not advertised but shared, where decisions are made based on trust, behavior, and mindset, not on promises. You become someone who doesn't need to convince because your track record already speaks for itself. These opportunities arise as if a door that has always existed finally appears before your eyes. And the most impressive thing is realizing that this door wasn't hidden. It was invisible. Invisible because, until then, you didn't have the behavioral pattern that others were looking for to allow you entry. It's a revelation that completely changes how you see your own journey. Before, it seemed that everything depended on impossible contacts, luck, or privileged information. Now you realize that the decisive factor has always been consistency. And this consistency attracts people who operate at another level of maturity. Mentors who previously didn't look at you now make room for private conversations. Experienced investors begin to treat you as someone who understands impact, risk, and responsibility, not because you became rich, but because you proved that you take this path seriously. And this creates a sensory sensation that's difficult to explain. It's like walking down a corridor, knowing there's a door there, but only when you reach the right level does it materialize, revealing a space that was always there, just reserved for those who were ready. It's at this stage that the journey ceases to be just about possessions and becomes about identity, mindset, and the revelations that appear to those who know how to interpret the signs. Write this down. I'm ready for the next door. When we start to calmly look at the path that leads to that 250K mark, we realize it has nothing to do with speed, shortcuts, or that anxious rush to get there quickly. In fact, everything is based on something much deeper: consistency. Not perfect consistency, of someone who never makes mistakes, but real consistency, of someone who keeps moving forward even when the journey seems slow, the discipline to maintain the investment when motivation runs out, the maturity to not abandon the strategy at the first sign of turbulence, and above all, the courage to build at the right time, not at the time of anxiety. That's where the hidden truth that so many people ignore lies. Reaching 250K isn't about how much you earn, but about how you behave in the face of money. It's about repeated decisions made with intention, an aligned mindset, and a deep respect for the process. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a silent transformation that happens as you go along. In the beginning, you invest to save money. Then, you start investing to build wealth. But at a certain point, and this usually happens even before reaching 250K, something changes inside you. Anxiety decreases, impulsiveness loses ground, and you start looking at the long term with clarity, not with sacrifice. Investing stops being a race and becomes a journey where each contribution is a step, each month is a brick, each decision is a reminder of the kind of future you are creating. And this internal change is precisely what opens doors that previously seemed invisible. Because 250K is not just any amount. It's the first real milestone of freedom. That point where you feel, for the first time, that you've built something that no one can take away from you. It's curious to see how this feeling changes everything. When you're still at the beginning, every fluctuation seems like an imminent risk. As you get closer, the fluctuations become a natural part of the process. And when you finally reach that milestone, you understand that what's most valuable isn't the money itself, but who you've become to get there. Maturity, discipline, long-term vision. All of this prepares you to see opportunities that only appear when you stop looking for shortcuts and start honoring the journey. The impact is much greater than it seems. It's at this point that the door opens, not because someone decides to invite you, but because you finally carry within yourself the necessary standard to enter. And the most beautiful thing is that when you realize it, it happens naturally, without announcement, without exaggerated celebration, without that feeling of, now I've arrived. It's more subtle, more profound. It's as if a key has been turned inside you, a key that says, now you are ready. And being ready means seeing paths that were previously hidden, interpreting signs that previously went unnoticed, and making decisions that you didn't feel prepared to make before. It's the revelation that true wealth begins long before assets, and that assets only appear because you decided to embrace the process in the right way. Comment below. That makes sense to me. And if you've stayed with me this far, I think you've already grasped how much deeper this topic is than it seems on the surface. This type of conversation isn't common, and I like to think that those who reach the end are part of a group that truly wants to build something with purpose, awareness, and a long-term vision. So, if this content has helped you in any way, if something here has clarified your journey or opened a new perspective, consider subscribing to the channel. It's the simplest way to continue receiving this type of reflection that doesn't just stay on the obvious, but delves into the behind-the-scenes decisions that truly drive wealth building. And before you leave a comment telling me that you made it to the end. Right. This message was for me. It's always special to see people sticking together until the very last minute, because it shows that this space here is meaningful to you too. If you'd like to leave a like, feel free. Besides helping the video, it creates that good feeling that we're building a worthwhile conversation, and that makes a difference. And since you're here, there's a video over there that complements this topic perfectly. Click and continue watching it.